guys, it's Dasha. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be a list of books that I really want to read in 2022. If you somehow missed it, I've been posting a ton of videos in the month of December for Bookmas, kind of wrapping up the last reading year and looking ahead into the next one. So this is obviously part of the looking ahead into 2022 and what my reading's gonna look like portion. If you would like to see all the other Bookmas videos, there is a playlist down below. But for now, let's get into this list because there are a lot of books to get through. I just thought 22 for 2022 sounded very poetic, despite the fact that I failed last year's TBR. If you want to see last year's, I have it linked right up here. But I set myself 23 books that I wanted to read because I didn't really count them. I just got really excited and started listing off books that I really wanted to read. And I got through about 15 of them, I think, or 14. So I didn't do great. So I tried to be a bit more strategic this year. I tried to kind of limit myself in terms of genres. So my main categories, classics, nonfiction, fantasy, I stuck to 5 of each. And I tried to be, like I said, strategic within those categories as well. And then there's a few other random genres, including thriller/horror. I kind of grouped those together. And a few random sci-fis also thrown in there. So let's not dilly-dally because there's 22 books to get through, and let's get right on into it. We're gonna start with my favorite genre, fantasy. And for this, I was strategic in the sense that I'm very bad at starting series and not finishing them. So I picked 2 standalones for this list. I picked 2 series continuations and only 1 series start, which was also strategic. So I'll start with that one. That's Les Fiancées de l'Hiver by Christelle Dabo. This is a young adult fantasy book set in this world where I think there are like these different floating islands that people live on, and our main character is sent off in an arranged marriage to someone on a different island than hers. So I think she goes like exploring and stuff, and I've heard great things, of course, about the translation. I thought I would read it in its original publication language, which is French. I live in Canada and I know French quite well, but I only use it for work, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to train my brain to engage with it in a more casual way so that I don't lose it. I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know fantasy words in French. I only consume fantasy media in English. So it's probably gonna take me a while to get through this because I'm gonna have to stop and look stuff up, but I think it'll be a really good exercise for me. And that's the reason this is the only one that's like a series start on this list, because it's the only French book I have, and I wanted to read maybe a little bit of French in 2022. So hopefully I get to it. I've heard great things, like I said, about the translation on BookTube. Everyone loves the English version of this book, and I'm hoping that the original lives up to all the hype. For the 2 standalones, I have one very well-known one and one that's a little bit less well-known. So the very well-known one is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a very big standalone. It's very expansive from what I've heard. You're dealing with this world where there are dragons, but the East and the West view them very differently. One side absolutely reveres them. They are these magical, beautiful creatures, and the other side absolutely hates them and blames them for everything wrong in the world. I know that there is a queendom. I know that there's sapphic relationships in here, and I know that this is just very beloved. I haven't heard a lot of people that actually got through this that disliked it, so I'm very curious to see where I stand. I'm looking forward to it. I don't read nearly enough books with dragons in them, so I'm excited to see how I feel. I'm never intimidated by big fantasies, only by big books of other genres. So I'm sure that I will be getting to this quite soon. I'm very excited to see how I feel about it. The lesser well-known one is A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gabriel Kay. This is a book set in this, how do they describe it? In a vivid world evoking Renaissance Italy, which is always a buzzword for me. I've read a few books with that kind of setting and I absolutely love them all. I don't know much about the plot. I think it is like a rivals to lovers romance, and they kind of have to partner together and work on something. Don't know beyond that. I know it is quite short and it is a standalone, so I'm looking forward to more fantasy standalones. I know Guy Gabriel Kay is a popular author, but I haven't heard people talk about this book specifically, so I'm very curious to see how I feel about it. And then we have our series continuations. So the first of these is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn Era 1 series. The first book I read earlier this year, gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was just perfect in almost every way. It didn't become like an instant favorite for me, but I just could not find any faults in the book. It's set in a world where you can ingest metals to perform different physical abilities or sometimes mental abilities, and you're following a group of like ragtag criminals who are trying to take the Lord Commander down, who is essentially immortal, so he's very difficult to kill. And the first book ended in a way that was almost like okay on its own, but I really enjoyed Brandon Sanderson's world building and his magic system and his characters, so I still really wanted to continue on with the series and at least round off this trilogy before I jump into the Stormlight Archive, which is his bigger, like more expansive and intense work. But I thought at least finishing a series would be good, so I'm putting this one on my list. His writing style is quite easy to get into despite how big his books are, so I'm not worried at all that I'll get to this and enjoy it. And the other one's a bit more worrisome for me, I would say. It's The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch. So the problem with this is that I just finished the sequel in November, and or was it December? By the time I finished it, it might have been December. Listen, I didn't like it very much, but the first book, The Lies of Locke Lamora, is phenomenal, and I thought it was absolutely amazing, and I've already read it twice now, and so I'm a little bit worried going into this third one that it's not gonna be, I'm hoping it's not gonna be like a repetition of the first two books. So in this world, there's not a lot of magic, it's just like this fantasy fictional world, but you're following mainly two characters, Locke and Jean, and you basically just follow them through a bunch of elaborate schemes as they steal from the rich to make themselves richer and richer. And I'm still excited for this. I would like to finish the currently completed series. There's going to be a fourth book at some point, who knows when. It was slated to be released this year, but we don't know. But anyways, as long as I catch up, I will be quite happy. And if I ever reread, I'm never rereading the second one, but hopefully I like this so I can maybe like reread, recap, and then reread this one in preparation for the fourth book whenever it comes out. I do still love the characters and the world is interesting. I just was really let down by the second, but I'm still hoping that this one pulls through. The next category of books is nonfiction. So like I said, most of the choices were strategic, and these are strategic in that I think they're books that are going to be really great springboards for either further research or for other books that I want to read in general. So these are all books that are focused on a topic that I think will relate to a lot of other topics, whether that be something pertinent for today's like events and world news, or it's just pertinent for other research that I want to do. This will kind of make sense once I get into them. So the first of these is Cultish by Amanda Montell. So this is a book about the language of cults and the language of fanaticism is kind of, I think, the subtitle for this book. I've heard great raving reviews for this one. It just sounds so interesting. Also, the cover is just immaculate, but also I just think that this will be right up my alley because I've always been fascinated by language in the media, language in cults, and language in like internet fandoms as well. I think is really interesting. So I think this is going to be a really good book to kind of help me contextualize a lot of current events and current phenomenons, and I'm very curious to see how I feel about this one. Something about it's been speaking to me, so I hope I'm gonna get to it soon because I'm really excited for this one. Another one that I think is gonna relate to current events is How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immerwahr. So if you've been on my channel for a little while, you'll know that I've wanted to read this for a while. This is a book about America's imperialism and how it's kind of hidden almost. Like there's a lot of territories that the US holds that are not very well known, and I'm always fascinated by this idea of the way that America erases a lot of its own history and also just what we learn in general. Now I am American, but I don't live in America. I live in Canada, so we don't get a lot of American history in our classes, but just in general knowledge, a lot of people know about America because it's apparently the center of the universe. And there's just a lot of things I don't know about it that I've gotten really into learning lately. At the time that I'm filming, I'm currently reading Jesus and John Wayne, which is about the white evangelical movement and how it kind of promotes rugged masculinity. And it's just this really fascinating side of the US that I've never seen. So I'm hoping this will also give an interesting geographical, historical, and military context to some of the ideas that are presented in there, and also just give more context for things that I just never learned about and that the media doesn't really cover. So the next book actually kind of relates to this. It's One Nation Under God by Kevin M. Cruz, and this is the history of Christianity and evangelicalism in the US and capitalism and how they're very closely linked. Like I said, I'm reading Jesus and John Wayne, and there's a lot of discussions about capitalism and the evangelical identity being centered around evangelical media and products, and I'm so interested in that. America is fascinating in itself. Like, it's just an absolute shit show, so anything related to it is going to be interesting for me, I think. But this specific relationship between evangelicalism and capitalism is really, really interesting to me because it's been the foundation for a lot of laws and events in the US. So I think this is going to be a really cool one to give me a lot of context behind a lot of movements and events in US history that we may have heard about, but we didn't really realize the root cause of. And in general, I'm just kind of in this phase. Am I in my evangelical era? I'm kind of in this phase right now where it's just really interesting to me. I've been watching some videos about it and, like I said, reading books, so I'm hoping to continue that train and learn more about it. Another one that I'm really excited for is Inventing the Individual by Larry Siedentop. So this was, I feel like I get a lot of these recs from Mara at Books Like Woke. She reads a lot of nonfiction that I'm really interested in, and this was one of hers, and this is basically how Western philosophy has invented the idea of the individual, how it didn't really exist before. I think it was the Reformation, if you want to say it started that long ago, if not the Enlightenment. And I think it's a really interesting topic because of connotation that it's had. Like, again, relating it to the US prizes individualism over all else, but there's not a lot of countries that do that. And the relationship between individualism and capitalism is also really interesting to me. So like I said, I'm hoping this book will be a good contextualizer for a lot of current events and a lot of interesting things that I'm looking into on the side and that I'm interested in exploring further. So I'm hoping this will be a really good basis. It'll lay some really good groundwork for understanding the concept of the individual so that I can look into it further in different contexts and while exploring other ideas. And finally, this one's unrelated. It's just one that's been on my radar for a while and I'm really excited for it. It is Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. So this is a true story that happened in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. That is another topic I don't know a lot about, and it's really hard to find books about it actually. So if you know any, please recommend them to me because I've had a really hard time finding books about it. And I think this would be a really good one for me to kind of learn about the Troubles, because if I just watch a video that's stuffed full of like dates and times and events and places, I'm not gonna get a full idea of it. But this is specifically following like one mother that was kidnapped from her house in front of her kids, and I think having that human connection to it would really make me understand what happened a little bit better. I've heard that Patrick Radden Keefe's writing is phenomenal. He recently released another book about the family behind Purdue Pharma that I'm also super interested in. I've heard that his writing, no matter what he's writing about, is super engaging, so I want to read everything from him, but specifically Say Nothing. It's been on my radar for a while. I'm very curious about that one specifically. Next, I want to get into some classics. So these were also, again, kind of strategic, kind of not. Some I'm just really excited for. Some of these are more modern classics because I find I tend to do quite well with those. And some are also just kind of a little outside of the ordinary. So the first of these is The Odyssey by Homer. I have here the Emily Wilson translation because I've heard that it's the best. And also, somehow when I moved into this apartment with my boyfriend, we ended up with 3 copies of The Odyssey between us, and all of them different translations. So we took a look one day. We sat down, we like opened and read the first couple of lines, and as soon as I read the Alexander Pope translation, literally unhauled it immediately. It was terrible. I'm not reading that. That was horrific. We also have the Robert Fagel's translation of both the Iliad and the Odyssey, and that one's a little bit better. But when I opened this one, I'm like, this is the one for me. I'm okay with this. I'm gonna read this. It seems very to the chase, but still beautiful. It seems like it conserves all of the important stuff from the original text without making it about how poetic it is, like the Alexander Pope one. Like, that one was just horrendous, but anyways, I was hoping that I would get to read Emily Wilson's translation of the Iliad that she's working on currently before I got to this, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And anyways, the story of the Odyssey is much more interesting to me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pick it up. I'm really excited for it. This goes very much in line with my goals of reading bigger books and classics. If you don't know, I have a video with my 2022 reading goals in general, and like I said, goals included reading bigger books because I'm usually scared of them, and also reading more classics and being okay with taking my time with books. So this falls in line with that, and in general, I would love to go to the source material for a lot of other tales that I love and read it for myself. Another classic I'm really excited to read is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. So this is a Russian classic, and it is about a talking cat, question mark. I actually don't know what the story of this one is, to be quite honest with you, but my mom read a lot of Russian literature growing up in the Soviet Union, and this is one of the ones that stuck with her. It's one of her favorite books ever, and otherwise our reading taste doesn't really align, so I'm curious to read this one so I have something to talk to her about and kind of get closer to her through her reading taste. I think that'd be a really good experience. I have not read much Russian literature, to be honest. I probably should. I'm not going to be reading it in Russian. I love myself. I will find a good translation and read that. because my Russian is not spectacular enough to be reading Russian classics in, but I'm still excited to get the general gist of the story and to also just experience some Russian classics, and again, enjoy something hopefully that my mother really loves. Another one that's kind of, I want to say, like outside of the literary canon for classics or what people consider to be classics, but I know that it is a great novel. I mean, it won the Nobel Prize. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I don't know much about this beyond the fact that it is a like family saga. It follows many people within the same family. I've heard it's beautiful, I've heard it's incredible and impactful, and I would like to read something outside of like the English or French or Russian canon of great literature, so this is one that I decided to pick up and I'm hoping to get to it quite soon. I hope I enjoy it despite the fact that it's not like my usual thing. Family sagas are not something I tend to enjoy, but I think given how beloved this is and how it's become a classic, I hope that I will find something in it for me. On my list, I also have And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So I know that this is a isolated close circle mystery. A bunch of strangers get invited to an island for a party by someone mysterious, and then once they arrive, people start dying. And I love that premise, and I know that it is an iconic premise because of Christie. She did it first and she did it best. I have read one Christie book before. I think it's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I don't remember much from it, to be quite honest with you, but I know that Christie is just absolutely iconic. I know that much of what we read today in terms of thrillers and mysteries is inspired by her, so I would love to go to the source directly and see what it's all about. This book seems to still shock people years and years after its publication, so I'm very curious to see if it's going to be surprising to me or if I can figure it out maybe, and just see what the fuss with Miss Christie is all about. I also like that this is a bit more of a modern classic, and it's kind of a genre classic, so it's not going to be as dense as a literary canon, you know, Dickens or Austen classic, and I'm hoping that the fact that it's a thriller or mystery will make it a little easier to get through. And the last classic on this list is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. So this one might, I don't know if it's really considered a classic. I consider it a classic. I know that it's become absolutely iconic, and I know that it is about the author's life, I'm pretty sure. So it was originally published as fiction, but later it was found out that it was nonfiction. It was just too controversial to be published as such back when it was published. So I'm excited to read this. I think that it's going to be something that I enjoy, given that it is nonfiction slash fiction. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see, you know, why it was so controversial, and I like that it's a bit more modern. Again, I think it's going to be a good way for me to ease back into classics, since that is one of my goals. I've just become kind of disillusioned with them, maybe because it's taken me over a year to read The Count of Monte Cristo. Who knows? So I'm hoping this will kind of inspire me to pick some more up. All right, so the last what I would call category is thriller slash horror, and there's gonna be a few books after that in the sci-fi genre, but this is gonna be the last of like the square categories, and these are not as strategic as some of the other ones that I've picked, but it's just some books that I really want to get to. The first of these is Carrie by Stephen King. So this is the story of a girl who develops, I think, telekinetic powers as a result of being bullied and or abused, if I'm not sure. I know that this is his first published novel, and I know that the movie and the novel have since become absolutely iconic. I have never watched any of the movies and I've never read it, but I am a Stephen King fan. I tend to enjoy most of his works that I read. Some don't quite hit, but I'm hoping that this will be a positive one for me. I don't know, I think it's just gonna be interesting to go back and see where it all began for Mr. King. And I tend to, like I said, really enjoy his work, so I think putting one of his many backlist books on the list will be a good way to make sure that I'm still picking his stuff up and trying. Even though I've gone through the ones that I'm most excited for, I still would like to read more of his work because he's so iconic. The next book is You by Caroline Kepnes. So this is the book that inspired the hit Netflix show. I did not watch the show either, but I'm excited to read the book because I know that it is written from second person perspective, which is really interesting. This is following a charismatic stalker, essentially, and I've heard that it's kind of creepy to read, which is perfect. The act of being inside his head is apparently just so mindfucky because you start to sympathize with him. So I'm really excited to actually read the book rather than just watch it from like a TV show perspective and see it from the outside. I think being inside the stalker's head is going to be just so cool. I'm really, really excited for it. I know that it's become a series, like a book series as well. I'm just gonna put the first one on the list, and I'm gonna treat them as standalones unless I just absolutely fall head over heels and need to read all of them. But I am excited for this. I've been telling myself I wanted to read it for ages, and I need to do it. It's happening. The next book on this list is Ring by Koji Suzuki. So I've talked about this one a lot on my channel because I've been excited for it and I never picked it up. But I promise I am going to be getting to it. I'm putting it on this list so that it happens. This again inspired the movie that became like a sensation. It's Japanese horror in its purest form. It is a novel about a videotape that's going around, and as soon as people watch it, they're told that they're gonna die in 7 days. And then they do. So you're following a reporter whose family member dies and he's trying to investigate and see what's happening with this tape. And it's short and it's iconic and I want to read it, and it's like I friggin' own it, and I've owned it since the summer, and it's just embarrassing that I haven't picked it up. So like I said, it's going on this list so that I do it. Some more Japanese horror on this list, Tomie by Junji Ito. So this is the story of a succubus. It is a woman who just kills men. Do I need more? In all seriousness, I really enjoy Junji Ito's art style. I've read 2 more books by him this year that I was just really disappointed by. I don't know if I mentioned they're horror mangas, but I read 2 more of his books that I was really disappointed by this year, but I still want to try more of his stuff because his art is just so magnificently creepy. So I'm hoping this one will be a bit more successful. I will pick it up physically because I don't like reading manga digitally. So I'm gonna get my hands on this one. The problem is it's like really expensive in Canadian, but I'm hoping that I do get to it soon. I'm hoping to pick it up sometime, maybe in the spring, summer, and get to it because I'm excited to read more from him. His stuff is phenomenal, and I'm hoping to have another hit like Uzumaki, and I'm hoping that Tomie will be that hit. And then the final in this category of thriller, horror, mystery is Bunny by Mona Awad. So this is the story of a group of girls at this elite college who are kind of cultish in their behavior. They all call each other Bunny, and they all kind of behave weirdly. And so you're following this new girl that joins the school, and she immediately dislikes the bunnies until one day they invite her to a seance that they're holding, and then shit hits the fan. Everyone who talks about this book talks about it in the same way, saying it is the weirdest thing they've ever read, and I can't decide if that's gonna make me love it or hate it because I don't do great with weird books, but somehow I have a feeling I'm gonna enjoy this. It seems like it could work for me, especially because of the setting, so I'm putting it on this list. I have pretty high hopes. I have an e-copy on my iPad, so I already have it. I just need to sit down and read it at some point, so I'm hoping the mood will strike in the late summer, early fall, and I will be able to get to this because I want to know what's so weird about it. I'm feeling left out. I want to be able to figure out what the deal is. I'm just too nosy for my own good, I think. All right, last 2 books on this list. We're almost done. We have 2 sci-fi books because I noticed that as much as I say I like sci-fi, I don't read a lot of it. So we're putting a few on this list, the first of which is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. All I know about this is that it is a political sci-fi, which I think is gonna be perfect for me. I don't do well with like space battles. I think I've mentioned this before. I can't keep up with them, so I'm thinking something outside of that genre would be perfect for me in terms of sci-fi. So politics I can do and I love. I think you're following someone who arrives to the capital of the galaxy or something to replace their predecessor who died under mysterious circumstances, and the book takes place over only a few days if I'm not mistaken, so I think it's gonna be so much fun. It sounds like something I would love, and it has a sequel. I don't know if it's just a duology or if it's gonna be a trilogy, but I know that there is a sequel out, so if I love it, I can keep going with the series, and I'm hoping I do love it because I would love to get more into sci-fi. I just don't do well with like giant space battle sci-fi. Keeping in that same theme, I have The Long Way to Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. So I had put this on my 5-star predictions list because I thought I was gonna love it. I know that it is about a cast of characters who are on this ship that kind of bores holes through the galaxy to facilitate space travel, but you're not following like the technical stuff. You're following these characters and their hopes and their dreams and who they are as people, and I think that kind of softer sci-fi might work really well for me, which is why I put it on the 5-star predictions list. It also meant I was excited for it, but I haven't gotten to it yet, so it's going on this list for me to absolutely read it. I'm very excited for this. Becky Chambers is beloved. Some people do find her a little slow, or it's maybe not their style of sci-fi, but I think it will work for me. I'm hoping that this character-driven sci-fi works. I know that it's also part of this series of standalone but like companion novels, so if I like it, I can read more of her stuff. If I don't, it's a self-contained story, which is perfect. I mean, I'm hoping I really like it. It seems like it's gonna be a 5-star, but like, I don't know, I've been wrong before. But yeah, that's another sci-fi that I think I'm really gonna enjoy that's a little bit different. and I have pretty high hopes for it. So, whew, I don't even want to know how long I've been filming for. That was my list, 22 books for the year of 2022. I picked some that are slightly challenging, but I'm still really excited for. Some are a little bit longer, some are shorter. I think this is a really good list. I'm feeling really good, at least better than I did last year, because last year was ambitious. If you've not checked it out yet, please do go check out my Bookmas playlist that's linked down below. I have a ton of videos that I've been posting through the month of December to kind of catch up on the reading year if you've missed those. My social media is also down there. You guys can always come talk to me there. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!